All right, in this video we're going to be looking at detailed Greek verb searches and give some of those instructions and helpful hints. So we're going to open the NA28 and we're going to look at John 5:25. You have truly, truly I say to you that the hour is coming and now is when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear, participle, will live. So let's say we want to do a couple searches here. First thing we want to identify a couple odd things here. Well, odd things that could be investigated through some word searches. Again, you could just double click. For example, akuo here is a major verb. Could just double click, and I have BDAG set as my preferred lexicon for Greek. So it opens up. And notice also it also highlights here because I have the emphasize active lemmas and active references checked. So if you check those, it will automatically highlight. So I can discuss and look at where this passage is referenced. So that can be very helpful indeed. But let's say we want to, and I guess I could go back and say, I'm going to just double click on this one. Since it's opened up in the lexicon and I go back here, notice that every occurrence of this word in the text is now also highlighted because I have the, where is it? Not here, I don't want that. Because I have emphasized active lemmas checked here as well. All right, so we're going to exit out of this for just a second. So we're talking about 25. Now, typically in Greek, you would see that the accusative is the direct object of most verbs, but here it seems that they will hear the voice. This seems to be the object of akuo. And now if you remember from your beginning Greek grammars, verbs of perception will often take a genitive as an object. So let's say we want to investigate this construction a little more. We can right-click here and we can run a search for akuo right here. Notice there are a lot of occurrences, and we're going to go ahead and take the Septuagint out of here because it's the New Testament and you're not going to have anything like that. So we have 428 results. And what I want to specify, similar to the Hebrew video, which we just did, is that you can specify here what kind of verbs you want to do. So for example, perhaps I want akuo in the aorist only, and I only want it active, and I only want indicative. First person, let's run that search. So it narrows it down to 45. So it's going to give me first person singular, akusa, and also first person plural, samen. So when we think about that, it's going to give us 45 results in 44 verses. In the aorist, first person singular, first person plural. If I wanted to identify only plural, I could go back, make the adjustment, and now it's only going to give me 10 results of that kind of parsing. So I'm going to take all that out for a second because what I'm interested in, if I just have akuo showing up, is I want to use a proximity operator to see how it's used with the word phone, with what we just saw with voice. So I'm going to say, let's see, we'll go within, because within as an operator includes both before and after. And so within, we'll say 3 words, and then I'm going to search for the lemma. And you can use the Greek keyboard or you can use the English like that. You still have to realize what the letters correspond with, but however you want to do it, that's fine. You just have to understand what English letters correspond to the Greek letters, which there are plenty of keyboard demonstrations online. If you look up the Logos keyboard, it'll show you. So what this is telling me, and I also have that on my other YouTube video on installing the Greek keyboard, on how to get that instruction manual on that. So I'm going to run this search, and notice I'm getting quite a few results. Notice it says 78 results in 38 verses. That's because each, both phone and akuo, each occurrence is counted as a result. So technically, there are 38 verses where these occur. And so when we go through these lists, it may you may find one or two verses doubled, but it's going to have each one differentiated, and that's why it has such a high result, even though the verse number is less. So there are a couple results which don't necessarily fit with the exact pattern that we were looking for in John 5, although you'll notice that if we look at John, we have 5:25 right here. That's the one we were looking for. We also have verse 28 having the same kind of pattern. So if we want this exact same pattern, we could actually run, notice it's within 1, 2. It would be within 2 words. So we could say, okay, let's find the exact same thing. We'll do within 2 words. Oh, not with after. I guess I have to do before because it's not Hebrew. My right to left is messed up. So before 2 words. Okay, so now we are given 21 verses. And notice this, we're giving all of the very similar constructions. Notice we have quite a bit in Revelation matching with John. If John is the author of Revelation, as we would hold to, then that wouldn't necessarily be surprising. And then we also have a couple occurrences in Acts as well, which, interestingly enough, Acts 9:4 and 22:7, there's the interpretive issue there, but we won't get into that. I do have a blog post on that if you're interested. So when we look at this, it gives us a lot of occurrences to examine. Notice that you have genitives involved here, but you also have some accusatives as well. So it's possible if we wanted to differentiate and see only a certain kind, we could go over to this list and we could say, okay, this is a noun, so you'd select noun, and I only want to see the accusatives. So now notice it's NA for noun accusative. You run the search, and boom, it limits it to only accusative, the accusative case of phone that shows up after this verb. So that's pretty neat. Now you could also say, okay, I want accusative and genitive, and so you could make that, and it's going to give us the exact same results as before because the accusative and genitive are both used as objects of akuo. And so it's helpful as you run through those searches. Remember, the basic principle is you go behind the word, and then this box, you do the @ symbol, and then this box shows up, and you can go through and make selections. So that can be helpful. So likewise, you could just run through, select the noun option, and then you can search for only genitives. And if you run that search, we have 16 results in 8 verses. So that means you have 8 verses with results, 1 result per verse. And so each one of these is an example of that. So that's similar to how to just do a basic complicated search with proximity operators. It's helpful. Let's say, I'm just going to throw out another search here, for example. Let's say you wanted to try to find the use of akuo with a pronoun. Well, one way you could do that, there's a couple ways you could do that, but one way is to do within, we'll give it 2 words, and then we'll do a lemma. Let's see. Well, actually, what we would do here is instead of doing a lemma, you just do the @ symbol. So you're not searching for a specific word per se, but you're going to search for a pronoun. And then we would want to search for a nominative pronoun because those are the ones that are going to be most prevalent to our search in being the subject of akuo. If that's what we're searching for, we want to see where pronouns are a subject of akuo. So there's going to be a nominative pronoun within 2 words of akuo at some point. Let's see if we can find that. Okay, so we have 37 verses of results here. Notice there's a very, very broad spectrum here. We have all sorts of pronouns being used. We have indefinite pronouns. We have near demonstrative pronouns showing up. We have personal pronouns, which is really what we're interested in. In fact, we could probably define that a little more by saying we want personal pronouns. Okay, so we're going to do that. Select personal pronoun as well. And when we run the search, we get a lot better results, 15. And so now we can look through and see which ones are actually helpful to our purposes. And it looks really like we're dealing mainly with plural pronouns. I haven't done these searches before. And so that can be helpful to run through searches like that. You can imagine, if you can think of it, you can search for it basically in how Logos does these things. One other thing I think is helpful, let's say we want to, we notice as we're reading through here, we see those who hear the voice of the Son, they will live. Whoops, I knew that was going to happen. They will live. So let's say we want to run a search on akuo, but then we also want to run a search on zao for live. And so we'll run our search with akuo. And what we can do also here is we can do and we want the lemma for zao to live. So we run that search, we get 3 verses. One of them is John 5:25. We also have 2 other verses. So nothing really too spectacular or exegetically significant. Just these are the only verses where you have those 2 verbs showing up in the verse together. So it's kind of neat to be able to see that. You could also run a variety of searches. Let's say you want poieo, so to hear and to do in the same verse. Okay, 30 verses where you have the idea of hearing and doing in the same verse. So the and operator isn't necessarily a proximity operator, but it is helpful when you think about it. Now, I should say too, you can also do and not. So in other words, this would give you results that include akuo but do not include poieo. So that would basically just be giving you all the results except for these 30, which have both of them. So you can include a variety of search options that way as well. So anyway, I hope that's helpful, just kind of giving a broad, quick overview of how to do searching. And from both the Hebrew and the Greek perspective, it's pretty neat and fun as you experiment with all the different ways that you can search for things, how they operate together, and verbal patterns, nouns that are used with verbs. It's a lot of fun. And so the goal will be in just a couple other videos to show some more complex ideas, how to run some searches. I guess before I do depart, the one thing I would say as well is an easy thing to do, especially from the Greek side, is having searched for this in the NA28, you can also go up here and say you want to search the LXX, Septuagint, and then so it'll bring up the Septuagint results where this word is used in the Greek Old Testament, which can be really, really helpful, especially maybe not so much for akuo, but for words that aren't used as often. It can be very helpful to see how New Testament authors are relying on language that is present in the Septuagint. So I hope that's helpful, and we'll look at a few more advanced examples in some following videos.